Namaskar. I am grateful to all of you who have joined today in paying homage to Mahatma Gandhi on his 74th Martyrs' Day, when he gave his life for the cause of peace and harmony. It indeed was tragic that a saint of universal peace and non-violence fell a victim to violence. I thank the Indian Mission and the Indian Council for Cultural Relations for hosting this tribute to pay homage to Mahatma Gandhi during the commemoration of 75th anniversary of India's freedom. Mahatma Gandhi's message of peace and compassion resounds with people of all faiths worldwide, and he is the spiritual and political leader of one of the world's most profound and complex cultural traditions. Many world leaders have been inspired by him and continue to get inspired by him till today. In all the countries, people have great reverence and respect for Gandhiji. Today, the world is faced with many kinds of conflicts and diverse types of crises. We see Mahatma Gandhi's emphasis on universal brotherhood and peaceful coexistence having an all time relevance. Therefore, his teachings and actions of Satyagraha, the non-violent civil disobedience, are the most upheld principles. Today in the world, the emphasis is on human dignity and upholding the values of natural justice. There would be no better tribute to Mahatma Gandhi than to rededicate ourselves towards the cause of peace and mutual tolerance. Mahatma Gandhi is not only a freedom fighter but also a social and political revolutionary. His idea of Satyagraha by the method of non-violence is praised and followed all over the world till today. Gandhiji is not a name but an idea that incorporates the feeling of non-violent struggle and sacrifice for the nation. Gandhiji is known for his various satyagraha to oppose unjust laws made by the British in South Africa and India. Some of the popular movements led by Mahatma Gandhi in India are the Champaran Satyagraha for indigo planters, Ahmedabad Mill Satyagraha for the mill workers, Kheda Satyagraha for peasants, Satyagraha against Rowlatt Act, Salt Satyagraha against the tax imposed on salt, and Quit India movement for freedom of India. There have been several successful experiences of Satyagraha in the past 50 years. Among the followers of Gandhiji in the 20th century, who successfully launched their own Satyagraha against racial, religious, and economic injustice and struggle for human rights, one could mention names like Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Lech Walesa, Václav Havel, Benigno Aquino Jr., and many others. In more than half a century, many around the globe drew inspiration from Gandhiji's method of satyagraha. Gandhian nonviolence, in its global sense, remains exemplary as a political action and is transferable as a human experience from one tradition of thought to another. That is why the recent history of nonviolent action around the world has shown us clearly that satyagraha is a seed that can grow and flourish in other cultures and religions. Maybe this is the reason why and how Gandhiji had a profound theoretical and practical influence on moral and political leaders around the world. Gandhian nonviolence has been instrumental in political transition from authoritarian or oppressive rule for many decades. Indeed, nonviolent revolutions, characterized by civil society organization, mass mobilization, and negotiation have revolutionized the very concept of revolution. Long ago, long gone are the days when the very concept of revolution was synonymous with violent struggle from below and armed efforts at state capture or overthrow. One thing is certain, that is, Gandhiji had a global impact on the transformation of human societies in our time. Gandhiji, in short, was a leader with a global cause. He found it, of course, in Satyagraha, the pathway to peace, and ultimately beyond the independence for India in the legacy of non-violence. Satyagraha is a moral force and it cannot be used for dishonest or unfair purposes. Gandhiji had said, and I quote, whenever there is evil, injustice, exploitation, social, economic, or political, Satyagraha can be resorted to. It must, however, be remembered that it is the last weapon and must be used only in the last resort when all other weapons of peace have been tried and have failed. Such failures, patiently endured, are, in fact, good preparation for the last step. Satyagraha is grounded in truth force, and the truth is imbued with love. Its method is simple, but its simplicity induces a mode and contains a surprise. It is a process of moral becoming. It is the application in the supreme crisis of moral energy against the forces that endanger the common human desire. In Gandhiji's many experiments with truth that he conducted for 50 years, he developed a technique of nonviolent action which today has attracted the attention of the world. He often called his method the science and art of Satyagraha, the power of truth, or the insistence on truth, or the application of soul force as distinct from physical force. The world admires Gandhiji's moral courage that brought forth a new method rooted in nonviolence, truth, virtue, dialogue, mutual respect, and self sacrifice, which is proving to provide a compelling avenue to solve modern conflicts. The character of our current era, that of secularism, materialism, and globalization, one is made to wonder if asceticism was merely an incidental factor in Gandhiji's method. Gandhiji's austerity was for him the prerequisite for his method of satyagraha. Can the modern world borrow Gandhiji's political strategies without accepting the personal practices that Gandhiji himself saw as essential to the struggle and still succeeded at the level Gandhiji did? Three great desires dominated Gandhiji's life. Whatever he thought or contemplated, whatever he said and wrote, whatever he did or achieved, bear ample testimony to the fact that he yearned to build up human life, to improve it, to reform it, to transfigure it, to make it a fitter instrument for transcending itself and for attaining the higher reaches in the spiral of evolution. He felt a sense of fulfillment more than ever when he was absorbed in doing something which built up and bettered human life. Gandhiji's whole soul rose against any evil in any form. To resist all evil was, therefore, his second desire. He would prefer death to submission to any evil. It was this urge that made him a lifelong crusader in the case of whatever he deemed good. He was a revolutionary, a crusader, and illness, age, nor preoccupations came in the way of responding to a call for fight against evil in any shape or form. The third most dominant desire in him was for love for peace. Every bit of him was for peace, for nonviolence. He said that man had no right to destroy what he could not create and to injure what he could not make whole. Better leave both to God, he would say, as he alone can do both. The evolution of the whole technique of nonviolent action is based on this dominant urge of his, that is, love for all beings. Gandhiji had a realization of the immanent presence of God or truth. It was that which made him declare that all life is one. Gandhiji had immense faith in the inherent goodness of human beings, and he believed that it would never fail to respond to nonviolence. Since he experienced a sense of identity with all living beings, he not only refrained from harming them, but when in conflict with them, he exposed himself to suffering and invited it during the effort to make the opponent convinced of the truth of his own contention. He had faith in the infinite power of suffering to convert the opponent. While Satyagraha, in its intense form, in its more complete facet, is a creed, a way of life, as laid down and lived by Gandhiji himself, in its broader aspects, it may be said to be a nonviolent weapon for the use of individuals as well as groups and masses in fighting against all evil and injustice, social, economic, and political. It is an alternative to all kinds of weapons and remedies which involve hatred and violence to person and property. The social organization of the Satyagraha was designed not only for civil resistance directed at the British colonial system, but also to model the new social order that the thousands of freedom fighters wished to put in its place, inspired and guided by Mahatma Gandhi. In 1918, on Gandhiji's call, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel quit his hard earned job as a barrister and joined the movement to fight for exemption of taxes in Kheda district in Gujarat state of India at the time of plague and famine. He joined Gandhiji's non cooperation movement in 1920 and traveled across India to recruit 3 lakh members. He also collected more than 1.5 million rupees as fund for the movement. In 1928, he led the Satyagraha in Bardoli district in Gujarat state of India, which was an object lesson in the method of voluntary suffering to oppose the brute force of the government. Sardar Patel's leadership were is seen in his unique courage, forthright diplomacy, and the expertise of a master tactician. Gandhiji offered his years of experience, his philosophy of satyagraha, and the charisma that attracted the world. After Satyagraha in Bardoli, Sardar Patel was the main pillar in all the subsequent satyagrahas for the Indian freedom struggle led by Gandhiji. Later on, Sardar Patel became the first deputy prime minister of independent India. In 1930, the leaders of the freedom movement like Sarojini Naidu, Kamla Devi Chattopadhyay, and Khurshid Nauroji, to name a few, joined the salt satyagraha led by Gandhiji. When Mahatma Gandhi was arrested, he appointed Sarojini Naidu as the new leader of the campaign. Mahatma Gandhi inspired this unprecedented movement of Indian women out of their homes in the cause of the nation's struggle. It is undeniable that Mahatma Gandhi chose the movement through the salt satyagraha and that he wanted women to be part of the movement that followed the Salt Satyagraha in a visible and prominent manner. In his 50 years of public life in three continents, Gandhiji emerged as the voice of the voiceless, which inspired social reformers, activists, political thinkers, and fighters for individual liberty and civil rights the world over. Today, we have a unique opportunity to take the lead, open a new page in human history by learning from Gandhiji to address the global challenges. It is because our own human existence is so dependent on the help of others that our need for love and compassion lays at the very foundation of our existence. Therefore, we need a genuine sense of responsibility and a sincere concern for the welfare of others. Even after 7 decades since Gandhiji's passing on, in every part of the world, his relevance is felt as strongly as ever before, and his visions and actions are of an enduring significance for all times and places. Gandhiji stands out as the champion not only of political democracy but also of economic and spiritual democracy in today's world. Gandhiji's belief that moral degeneration is the root cause of all evils, including conflicts, stands the test of time. On January 30th, 1948, it was a routine day for Gandhiji. He told his grandniece Manu that the lethargy about other things could be tolerated, but not regarding prayers. He asked her to sing a bhajan, that is a hymn. Rest not, O man, even in the face of fatigue and weariness. A lot of work awaited Gandhiji's attention. Gandhiji did not like anyone missing his or her present duty to provide for an uncertain future. He said, who knows what is going to happen before nightfall, or even whether I shall be alive? Hardly a day had passed in January 1948 when Gandhiji had not mentioned his death. Some may claim that Gandhiji had premonitions about his death. Just a previous day, he had repeated to Manu that if I die in my bed of common illness or even a small boil, you should proclaim loudly and repeatedly, even in the cost of condemnation, that this man was no Mahatma. But if I die while going for prayer and a man comes face to face and fires bullets at me, which I accept in my chest with the name of Rama on my lips, and if my mind is free from all the hatred for the killer, tell them that he was a true devotee of God. It was to his unique credit that in a world marred by violence and hatred, Mahatma Gandhi stands firm as a man of universal goodwill and a protagonist of peace. What is most striking is that Gandhiji emerged during his lifetime as a torch bearer of peace, and even today he continues to surprise mankind with his non-violent methods of satyagraha for resolving conflicts. What is stranger still is the resonance of success of his satyagraha that continues to inspire people across the globe. This was the inner calling that he identified and invested it in serving and helping people to establish their self respect and dignity. He had a keen desire to restore the dignity of all human beings. This reflects beautifully in the shloka, which used to be recited in the daily morning and evening prayers in Gandhiji's ashram. न त्वहं कामये राज्यं न स्वर्गं न पुनर्भवं Kamaye dukkha taptanam praninam artinashanam. I do not crave for kingdom, nor do I want heaven or salvation. I merely want to alleviate the sufferings of people. 74 years after violence brought his life to an abrupt end, it is a life worth revisiting, for it carried in its chapters the mild but unassailable truth that peace is a positive force and that it can still move humans away from darkness towards light. Mahatma Gandhi had declared, "Am I going to be silenced after my death? I will proclaim my faith even in death and speak from the grave." What was this faith that he wanted to proclaim from the grave? It was faith in truth that was God. It was faith in the goodness of all, as all are capable of truth. It was faith in the goodness of mankind. It was faith that despite the falls and upheavals, humanity would move towards goodness because truth, that is God, is only interested in the welfare of its creation. I once again take this opportunity to thank the Indian Mission and the Indian Council for Cultural Relations for hosting the talk on Martyrs' Day. My special thanks are to all of you who have joined me online today. We pay our tributes to Mahatma Gandhi with a hymn.
Satyagraha